Hello and welcome back to the Pitchsider podcast. Coming up this week, Americans try to flex their financial muscles and is the return of the Premier League. Also making his return is the footballing expert, Mr. Toby Green. How are you?
I've been ill, but right now I'm good. It's good to be back on the podcast. How have you been, mate?
Yeah, I've been very well. Yeah, it's been a lot of football and a lot of news actually this week, just before it all dies down for this international break. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's I've been well, enjoying the football. Should we get started with the news for this week?
Let's jump into it. Let's go.
So let's start with Chelsea and their American owners. So this week it has been announced that Chelsea have tried to buy Brazilian club Santos, which is famous for producing players like Neymar and Pele. What do you think of this?
Well, in terms of Santos, they're one of the most historic clubs in Brazil. Actually, in fact, one of the most historic clubs in South America as a continent. Not really famous in recent times for domestic success, but their academy of producing players is quite well renowned. I feel like Chelsea want to go in the way of like Man City have and Leipzig. Not just Leipzig, actually. Red Bull as a brand have gone, picking up feeder teams around the world. It has been very successful for Red Bull in particular. So I don't know. It does make sense. I'm not a fan of it though, because it sort of loses the integrity of the clubs that are already established in those particular leagues. I know with Red Bull they bought a club in Bretanango, so then they renamed it Red Bull Bretanango, which basically it was never a very big team, and I don't think they really got into the top division. So if you were to do that as a club, I think maybe go for the maybe a little bit less established club.
Yeah, so I believe Santos have turned down Chelsea, and yeah, Chelsea are going to regroup. But I believe they do want a club in Brazil, so they will go back for another club. But I don't believe it will be Santos, and I believe they're also looking in the Portuguese league as well. So we'll have to see where this develops. But I think this is more of a long-term strategy than to get success at these clubs. But I think it's more of a, because of these loan rules that have come in from FIFA and UEFA, and trying to get rid of this loan army, we can sort of give players to these clubs where we know they're going to play, rather than loaning them out to clubs like for example, what we did with Billy Gilmour, loan him out to Norwich. All the fans hate him, and he doesn't really play and stunts his growth a little bit.
Yeah, it is a good point, actually. I mean, I did mention two big clubs that have done that, but also clubs like Brighton, they've got a feeder team in Belgium, Union, talked about before. Also Brentford, they've got a team, I think in Denmark, I want to say. Yeah, it is Denmark. So there's a lot of teams have done it. I guess for Chelsea, if they did go down that Brazilian route, it would make sense to have a Portuguese feeder team, because that's the natural progression for a lot of Brazilian players, is to go to Portugal. Not only for the familiar language, but they also have got I think it's an easier to register players and to sign them to Portuguese clubs. So I guess from that side of it, there's logic.
Also, Todd Boehly has been in the news as well this week, because he wants to do an all-star game between the North versus South, a bit like the NFL where they've got two divisions, so they want to split it North and South. So the North teams would consist of Newcastle, Leeds, Liverpool, Everton, United, City, Forest, Wolverhampton, Leicester City and Aston Villa. And the South teams would be Tottenham, Arsenal, Fulham, Brentford, Chelsea, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Brighton, Southampton and Bournemouth. And the rules would be a standard Premier League game with 11 players. One of them would they have to include one player per team, with one other team having two representatives. What are your thoughts on this? I know some people are for this and some people are against this.
I mean, I can see the appeal. Maybe I feel like the Community Shield, which is formerly known as the the charity shield is a little bit redundant now. I know the money goes to charity, but maybe if they made this into like a charity feature, North beats South, that could be quite interesting. I wouldn't like it if they could select more than one player per club, because that would just be like Man City versus a few clubs from the South, so that would be a bit boring. I mean, there's not much time in the season to fit this game in either, so there's a lot of logistic issues, and I don't think it'll happen for a long time. But it's an interesting thought, nonetheless.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether you could maybe get it to replace the Community Shield, because Community Shield is more seen as a trophy for just the big teams. If you win it, it's great, but if you don't win it, it's not that great. It's more seen as a pre-season friendly. Whether you could maybe do this as if like it's an all-star team. I know the MLS do like an all-star team, and it would be good. Yeah, I think it would bring in a lot more people if like their players, you're represented by one player. So like from Chelsea would probably be Reece James at the moment, or Sterling, and it'd be interesting to see. And maybe you get the two best coaches from each side to come and coach that team for a week or so.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, yeah, it's got, I wouldn't say legs, but yeah, it sounds like an interesting thing. It seems like something that I would want to watch, but who knows? I'm sure a lot of teams wouldn't actually want to do it. All the games they have to play, particularly the teams high up in the leagues in the table. But who knows? We'll see.
The last piece of news coming from American owners is Bournemouth. Bournemouth have been subject to a bid from a American consortium who owns Las Vegas NFL team.
Not the City.
No, it is the Los A. I think it's headed by Bill Foley, which owns the Los Angeles Golden Knights, which is a hockey team. I think this would, if they are bought out, which it is a big offer, which I believe Bournemouth are considering. I believe this would make 11 teams in the Premier League have some partial owners from America.
Yeah, absolutely. I really don't like American owners. Generally, they've been pretty poor in terms of the examples that we've seen in the past. Obviously, United's the big one. Chelsea, who knows where that's going to go in the future. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, Viva Las Bournemouth. An interesting one. They need some sort of development. They've still got the smallest stadium in the league. I don't think they've got much of a budget. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I think the consortium or the owner of the NHL team is looking to have an MLS team. I think that'll be the next expansion team as well, the team in Las Vegas. And there's rumored to be called Las Vegas Villains. So make your own mind up what you think about the name.
Just to clarify, the American-owned clubs in the Premier League are Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Villa, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Leeds, West Ham, and Man City.
Man City?
Yes, I believe they have taken on some US investment on some scale.
Oh, okay, well. Yeah, I mean, the Americans do bring money in, but I don't know how much grasp of the game they have and how much knowledge and how well that money will be spent. But obviously for Bournemouth, it would be a good thing, any kind of cash injection, particularly now. If they get that money in for January, then maybe they'll improve their chances of staying up.
And moving on, English goalkeeper Ben Foster, formerly of Watford, West Brom and United, has announced his retirement on his YouTube and podcast, The Cycling Goalkeeper. Yeah, sad to see him go. Or
I mean, he's 39. He's had a career, like a decent career. I think actually Newcastle were in for him for like 6 months or something, but he turned them down. So yeah, happy retirement. Go cycle somewhere.
I think he's going to focus on his podcast, which is becoming quite popular, I believe. So give it a listen once you've listened to this. In Ireland, or Northern Ireland, a 13-year-old kid has become the youngest ever footballer to make his debut. I'll let you tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah, he's straight out of the academy, obviously. Straight out doing his GCSEs. I can't remember his name. Crazy, isn't it? 13 years old.
Yeah, I know. I believe an Arsenal player today made his debut at 15. I
Yeah,
think he became the youngest Premier League player ever.
Ethan Nwaneri, 15 years old, came on today. Actually played a decent amount of minutes. I think it's like at least 15 minutes. So yeah, fair play. Not sure how much game time we'll get this season. Probably a bit different for the Northern Ireland kid because he's playing in the Northern Ireland Premiership. So maybe you'll get more game time over there. But yeah, interesting to see. Game's getting younger. We're getting older.
I believe he is called Christopher Atherton. He was 13 and 329 days old.
Yeah, I think it's Glenavon he played for.
Yes.
Just the biggest team in Northern Ireland. So yeah, good luck for him. Good luck to the Arsenal lad. Hope they have a good career.
Mm-hmm. If you were listening to this in 30 years' time, you will know how well these kids have done. Or if you've never heard of them, you know they didn't do anything. And the final piece of news comes from Italy and Paul Pogba. I'll let you, again, lead on this.
Yes, there's been a lot of drama around the Paul Pogba family for a couple of weeks now. Essentially, Paul Pogba's brother, Mateus, extorted him for money, his brother Paul Pogba. And basically, yeah, Paul Pogba has taken him to court, and it looks like it's going to go a bad way for Mateus Pogba. He's in jail, waiting a trial, but all the evidence is pointing that he's guilty. So really a weird scenario. I don't know why you'd sort of try and extort your own brother at all. Mateus is the worst footballing brother out of the three of Pogba brothers. He played for the likes of Crawley, Wrexham, Pescara in Italy, and a few other teams. But it was hardly any good. Probably why he needed some money. But yeah, bizarre story. Interesting to see how that one develop.
But should we move on to some actual football now? And let's talk about the Champions League. So we've had the second round of fixtures for the Champions League. I'll just run through through the games, and then we'll pick out a few of the games to just go over. So we started on Tuesday with Liverpool versus Ajax, which ended 2-1 to Liverpool. Bayer Leverkusen beat Atletico Madrid 2-0. Club Brugge beat Porto 4-0. Inter Milan beat Victoria 2-0. Bayern Munich won as usual against Barcelona 2-0. Sporting Lisbon beat Tottenham 2-0. And Frankfurt beat Marseille 1-0. And on the Wednesday, Napoli beat Rangers 3-0. AC Milan won 3-1 against Dynamo Zagreb. Chelsea drew 1-1 against Red Bull Salzburg. Celtic drew against Shakhtar Donetsk 1-0. Real Madrid beat RB Leipzig 2-0. Seville versus Copenhagen was 0-0. Man City beat Borussia Dortmund 2-1. Benfica beat Juventus 2-1. And PSG defeated
Maccabi Haifa
3-1. There was a few upsets in this, going through this, especially for Juventus and Barcelona, always losing to Bayern Munich, but it wasn't that bad this time.
Yeah, in the Bayern Munich game, if you want to start there, I thought it was I thought Barcelona had a lot of chances, particularly Lewandowski. You had 2 or 3 very, I wouldn't say clear cut, but ones you'd expect him to finish. And they were just a little bit unlucky in that game. And then sort of as it dragged on, Bayern Munich sort of established how good they were and sort of kept the possession and ultimately ran away with the game. So not the best result for Barcelona, but promising signs. And we'll talk about it in a little bit. But I guess the Champions League result for Bayern Munich is a little bit of the flip side of how domestically it's going for them. I want to just speak a little bit about Sporting as well. 2 late goals against Tottenham. Tottenham holding on into the 90th minute, and then Paulinho scored, and then Gomez scored. But a guy that really caught the eye was Marcus Edwards, an English lad. Actually, used to be former Tottenham. It came through the academy. Was loaned out to Excelsior in the Netherlands, and then was sold to Victoria Guimarães in Portugal. And then he made his way to Sporting after a good season there. But he looked really good. His dribbling is out of this world. I haven't seen too much of him, but maybe there's a slight outside shout for him to be in the England squad after that display. But yeah, we'll see. Definitely one for the future. And if he can keep this up, playing for one of the best teams in Portugal, it'll be amazing to see how well his trajectory continues to go. I also want to shout out Club Bruges defeating Porto. Going into this, everybody probably would have thought Porto would win quite comfortably. Bruges lost their best player in Nketiah to AC Milan for about £30 million. They haven't lost a beat at all. And a player I do want to mention, Ferran Jutla, the Spanish striker forward, got a goal and assist in this game. Played really well, and they actually ran Porto ragged. So yeah, maybe one to watch out for.
Let's go to the Chelsea game quickly. I know it wasn't a standout game, but it was Chelsea's new manager Graham Potter's first game. He did get a bit slated for this. Chelsea obviously didn't start off the Potter reign with a win, but they looked a lot better. Few surprises. Sterling playing as a left wing back, but I believe it was pointed out later he was more of a winger. We went to a back four roughly when Sterling went forward with James pushing back as a right back. But yeah, look, there's promising signs from there. Just need to have more of a killer instinct, I think, as a Chelsea fan. But did you watch this game?
I watched the goal show, so I watched all the goals basically from all the games. But yeah, with Salzburg, they've got a wealth of young talent always coming through. I don't think they're a side to ignore really in this competition. I don't think they'll win it, obviously, but they've got a really good high pressing style of play, quite pacey attack as well. So they can always do a lot of damage. And obviously, Benjamin Sesko was a name on a lot of people's lips throughout the window. Obviously, he didn't end up at United or Chelsea, but he's gone to Leipzig, the sister team, I guess, next year in the next season. But yeah, definitely maybe a play to watch out for this season. I really like how Salzburg play. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting games from this day from Wednesday as well. Benfica beating Juventus. Juventus have been incredibly poor. There've been a lot of shouts for Allegri to be fired as manager. But yeah, they've been run ragged again. But Benfica, who look really up for the challenge, they got some really nice players coming through. Enzo Fernandez, who they signed from River Plate, the 21-year-old Argentinian midfielder. He's going to go on and have a fantastic career. I'm sure this is only a stepping stone for him, and he'll probably be picked up by maybe a Premier League club, maybe like £50 million. So one to watch out for, Enzo Fernandez.
Yeah, I don't think there's. It was an interesting round. Just quickly go through the groups of the Champions League.
While you go through that, I'll just mention the City game as well. Agonising for Dortmund as well, because they were holding on quite well, playing good football, actually dominating much of the game. Bellingham scored for them early on, and so unlikely answer came through the likes of John Stones, who scored an absolute thunderbolt from about 30 yards or so. Reminded me of Company's goal against Leicester quite a few years ago now. But yeah, astonishing goal. And then they topped it up with a goal from Erling Haaland. It was a beautiful assist by João Cancelo outside of the boot cross. And then it came in. Erling Haaland rose double the height of the defender and kicked it in as if he was sort of walking on air. Phenomenal. This man's a machine.
He is, yeah.
Terminator.
Yeah, his stats this season are just unreal. Yeah, he's gonna go on and get at least double what everyone probably thought he would get, maybe 60 goals, maybe at this rate.
Yeah, if he goes on in the league alone at the rate he's at, he'll get 50 goals, which will smash the record. Only injuries could interrupt this.
Yeah, he can be a bit injury prone sometimes, especially last season. But yeah, just quickly run through the groups before we move on to Europa stuff. So Group A, we've got Napoli on 6 points, Liverpool on 3, Rangers on 3, Ajax on 3, Rangers on 0. Group B, Club Brugge is on 6, Bayer Leverkusen on 3, Atletico Madrid on 3, and Porto are on 0. Group C, Bayern Munich are on 6, Barcelona and Inter are on 3, and then Victoria are on 0. And then we've got Sporting on 6, Tottenham and Frankfurt on 3, and Marseille on 0. AC Milan are on 4, Dynamo Zagreb are on 3, Salzburg are on 2, and Chelsea are on 1, bottom of the group. Real Madrid have 6, Shakhtar Donetsk have 4, Celtic have 1, RB Leipzig have 0. And then we've got Man City have 6, Borussia Dortmund have 3, Copenhagen and Seville both have 1. And the final group, PSG and Benfica are on 6, and Juventus and
Maca Hacker, that's how they should be known.
Maca Hacker are on 0.
I'll just run through the Europa League results as well from Thursday night. So United came 2-0 victory, came out 2-0 against Sheriff Tiraspol. Sociedad 2-1 against Omnia. Midtjylland triumphed 5-1 against Lazio, which is a little bit shocking to say the least. Feyenoord came out 6-0 victory against Sturm Graz from Austria. Olympiacos lost 3-0 to Freiburg. Karabag from Azerbaijan won 3-0 against Nantes. Trabzonspor won 2-1 against Zvezda from Belgrade. AS Monaco lost 1-0 to Ferencváros. Bodo Glimt came out 2-1 victory against Zurich. Larnaca from Cyprus, I want to say, won 1-0 against Dynamo Kiev. Stade Rennais drew 2-2 against Fenerbahce. Roma won 3-0 against Helsinki. Real Betis won 3-2 against Ludogorets. Union Saint-Gilloise won 3-2 against Malmo. And Braga won 1-0 against Union Berlin. And just to pick out a game from the Conference League, because there's quite a few of them, West Ham survived an upset against Silkeborg from Norway. They went down 1-0 in the 5th minute and eventually won 3-2 in the end. So a good sort of comeback from them.
Yeah, there's a few good games out this. Obviously United winning against Sheriff, but United weren't that great in that game.
No, they weren't great, probably because Ronaldo was playing, so it wasn't really the most fluid system. But he did get his first ever goal in the Europa League, a beautifully taken penalty. You can't ask for more, really. Sancho actually did score a nice goal, though, to be fair. Yeah, and yeah, obviously the upsets for Lazio losing 5-1 to Midtjylland, which is a little bit surprising because they've done quite well in the league. And they definitely got the, like-for-like better players. And Freiburg, my second team, won 3-0 against Olympiacos, who are also owned by the Nottingham Forest owner. They got a lot of players, linked between the two clubs. Josh Bowler, Nottingham Forest bought from Blackpool and loaned out to Olympiacos. He played in that game. Also Juan Marseille. They signed him from Bordeaux, Forest, and loaned him out to Olympiacos. They've also got James Rodriguez as well. He hasn't played in this game. I think they registered him in time.
Union, the Belgium team, which we mentioned a few times on this podcast last season and this season, they're doing well so far. Got 6 points out of 6 in the Europa League. I know they're not doing very well I think they're about 8th or 9th in the Belgium League now. But yeah, they look to be good in Europe.
Yeah, it was always sort of a bit of an upset, them getting to where they were last season in their domestic league after, just being promoted. So I guess that was sort of an anomaly. But, now they're in Europe. They're doing really well. They actually have an English player playing centre-back, Christian Burgess, brought him from Portsmouth. They had a few other English players, so I think they let a few of them go. But yeah, interesting to see how well they do this year. It's always nice to see it's like underdogs so appear out of nowhere and make their mark on European competitions. So all the best to them.
They're more coming sort of our team. We've mentioned them 3 or 4 times now, I think, in this podcast. Maybe we should give them a sponsor.
Pitchsider sponsors.
Yeah, they're definitely a team to watch. I think, they're 6th now in the Belgium League. But yeah, it's good to watch them in the Europa League.
Yeah, and They can still win the Belgian league, even if they finish like fifth or something, because at the end of the season it turns into a weird playoff kind of system. So yeah, it doesn't really matter where they finish. Just their form at the end of the year is what counts. Mm-hmm. So yeah, best of luck to them.
But before we move on to the Premier League, let's stick with the Belgium league. I know not. I just want to. I was looking at Anderlecht because they played West Ham in the Conference League this week. I didn't realise because you see them. You know, most people know Anderlecht from Belgium. They're sitting 12th currently in their league.
To be honest, Anderlecht haven't been good for a while. At least since Company came in. I know he's left now, went to Burnley, but yeah, prior to that they weren't doing well. They've always had a good youth system, so they've got like youth players coming through, young players. I mean, their main strikers are two loanees, Esposito from, I believe, Inter Milan, and Fabio Silva, the Wolves striker. Fabio Silva's actually having a good season. He's got 4 in about 5 starts. But generally, those are the two strikers who have done terribly in recent years, particularly Fabio Silva, who cost about 50 million or something ridiculous and didn't score a single Premier League goal. But I think it's not just the case of Anderlecht getting worse, it's the case of other teams in the league getting better. Club Brugge, in particular, the runaway team in the league. Genk as well have also had a good squad. Peter Onuachu, the Nigerian striker, 6'7" or something ridiculous. He was the top scorer last season. And Antwerp as well have stepped up their game. So yeah, it's a lot more competitive than it used to be, the Belgian Pro League.
Yeah, I think Royal Antwerp are the top team with 27 points. But I believe they've got like Alderweireld and Vidal. I think, is it Vidal?
No, not Vidal. They got Nainggolan, I believe.
That's it, yeah.
And Vincent Janssen, the former Tottenham striker. He was terrible at Tottenham. Mm-hmm. But yeah, quite good here.
Let's move on to the Premier League. We haven't had a full round of fixtures this week. We haven't had 10 games. We've had 7 due to policing issues for Her Majesty the Queen's funeral. A lot of resources have been poured for that. So big games have been called off, like Chelsea versus Liverpool. But I'll do a quick roundup of all the scores. So on Friday night, we had Villa versus Southampton, which Villa got a 1-0 lead. And also Fulham beat Nottingham Forest in a thriller of a game 3-2. On Saturday, Wolverhampton lost to Man City 3-0, with Haaland being the wrecking ball of that team again. Newcastle versus Bournemouth was 1-1. Tottenham absolutely destroyed Leicester in a 6-2 victory. And on Sunday, Arsenal beat Brentford 3-0, and Everton got their first win of the Premier League season against West Ham, which was 1-0. Where would you like to start?
I mean, might as well mention Fulham. They've been phenomenal this year. Everybody expected them to be near the relegation zone, but they've surprised everybody. Their signings have been quite unusual this year in the sense they haven't completely rewritten their entire squad. They've been trusted a lot of their not older players, but players who've been at the club for a long time. Adebayo and also Tim Ream, the American dream at centre-back. But a player that's really stood out this year so far is Palhinha, the Portuguese defensive midfielder who did score in this game. I don't know why nobody else is going for him in the summer window, but it's a real shock. You can see his real quality. Also, Williams started as well and had like a good game. Forest, on the other hand, they definitely just, I don't know. It's a bit strange because they're still not playing all their new signings. I know they've got like 20 of them, but yeah, they're still relying a little bit on players from last season. I don't know. Some of the signings do confuse me a little bit. The amount they spent on like Dennis as well. I'm not sure what he brings to the table at 20 million. So yeah, give them time. They have their moments though. Yeah, and I feel like O'Brien. I know they're going from Huddersfield, but he's definitely been their best player this season, and he should start over some of the more expensive signings they brought in midfield. Mm-hmm. But just to quickly touch on the City game as well, it's sort of standard 3-0, but that Collins challenge on Grealish was the most ridiculous challenge I've seen in a long time. Absolute fly kick, Grealish, kung fu'd him. I don't know. Maybe it's the influence of Diego Costa to the club. Who knows? But yeah, interesting one.
And probably got mentioned this Tottenham Leicester 6-2. Son hadn't scored a goal all season, scores 2 absolute wonder goals and gets a hat trick within 25 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes it's a good thing to drop players to the bench, and you can bring them on. It sort of refreshes them a little bit less pressure on him, and he definitely took the challenge in hand. The last hat trick Tottenham scored was Stephen Naismith in 2015, so quite a while ago. So yeah, great to see Son. I think he is a confidence player in a way. You know, he thrives off that. So surely this will kickstart his season in terms of goal scoring and output. But yeah, big result, and it leaves Leicester still with only 1 point after how many games? 7 or so. So it's shocking. It is shocking. So I'm not sure how long they can keep up with this. I'm not sure.
No, especially you've got the likes of Forest, West Ham, and Everton. West Ham, you always feel like they will pick it up and they will stay. And then you've got Forest. You feel like they probably will come into their own at some point when all of their players start clicking. It's still early on, but it's really gonna affect Leicester being down where they are, being 1 point minus 12 goal difference, and some people will say they're only 3 wins off from Chelsea, which is sitting 7th. But time will tell. It's going to be interesting to see how they come back, especially as they need to spend big.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean they do have the funds now in theory after selling Fofana, but yeah, it's maybe a little bit too late. They just don't look very competitive, and I know we mentioned it before, but the team just looks tired and a little bit disheartened. So big job on the hands for Rodgers. Will he get fired next? Who knows? Is it his fault? 50-50. Who knows? Yeah, probably not really his fault, but yeah.
No. I reckon he probably will be, especially as Gerrard and Lampard are both getting wins now. They are starting to collect some points, so you see he's the likely candidate to next go. But
yeah, it will cost an arm and a leg though to sack him though.
Maybe they won't.
A contract after the FA Cup, which wasn't too long ago, after their victory. So yeah, it probably has a few years left in his contract.
But should we move on to the other European leagues? Should we move on to the Bundesliga?
Yeah, absolutely. Shall I run through the results?
Yeah, go for it.
So on Friday, Mainz drew 1-0 with Hertha Berlin. Yesterday, on Saturday, Borussia Dortmund won 1-0 against Schalke in the Ruhr Derby. Obviously, Schalke just got promoted from the second division last season, and you know the quality in players is massively in favour of Dortmund. But yeah, there's a lot of emotion in this game, so it was tighter than it appeared. And Royce to go off injured, so who knows how long he'll be out for, because he had to get stretchered off. It didn't look pretty. Leverkusen. Sorry, Joe.
I believe he is. I think I saw something that he is going to miss the World Cup. I don't know if it's fully confirmed, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll see on that one. He's always been incredibly injury prone, so it wouldn't surprise me. And he did miss a World Cup. I think it was 2018, I want to say.
And a couple of Euros, I think, as well.
Yeah. Bayer Leverkusen drew 1-0 with Werder Bremen. For Leverkusen, this is a fantastic result because they didn't lose. A big shock was Augsburg beating Bayern Munich 1-0. Bayern Munich have had, I believe, 90 shots on target in their last 4 games. Not on target, just 90 shots in their last 4 games without winning any of them. This has been a terrible start to their campaign. They're in 5th place at the moment on 12 points, with Union, Dortmund, Freiburg and Hoffenheim above them. It seems like they're lacking, I hate to say it, but a main sort of focal point up front, perhaps a Lewandowski figure. But I don't know. maybe it just needs a little time for them to click. Nagelsmann's name maybe on the board as a manager who may be in line to get the sack. Obviously, there's another German manager who's available at the moment who will probably be waiting in the wings for when that happens. Stuttgart lost 3-1 to Eintracht Frankfurt, and Leipzig lost 3-0 to Gladbach. Bit of a shock defeat for Leipzig, who've had very wishy-washy form this season. They beat Dortmund 3-0 in their previous game, and now losing 3-0. So up and down. And in today's games, Union Berlin defeated Wolfsburg 2-0. Bochum drew with Cologne 1-0, and Hoffenheim Freiburg game is currently ongoing.
I know I mentioned it last week, but it's probably you want to get your opinion on Union Berlin. They are still at the top, still undefeated in their league. It's quite a astounding rise from them. They haven't been in the Bundesliga that long. A couple of seasons ago, they were relegation favourites, and now they're probably one of the favourites to win the league.
Yeah, up there. I mean, last season this season actually they lost their top scorer from last season, Iwayimi, who went to Forest, but they replaced him seamlessly with Geraldo Becker and Jordan Sibichu, the Suriname striker and the American striker. And just the whole team, it's not like full of wonder stars or anything like that, but they're just very well drilled, work hard. The club itself is actually fan-owned. The stadium was built by the fans, I think about 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit less. It's a great club. Historically, Hertha Berlin has been the biggest club in Berlin, but as of late, they've been pretty dire, Hertha, after having a massive cash injection a few years ago. So, yeah, all the best to Union. It'd be interesting to see how well they do for the rest of the season. If Bayern Munich will step up their gear, I think they certainly will. I think that's a given. It's just a matter of when, not if. But yeah, very interesting to see how well they develop the team from Berlin.
And should we move on to the Serie A, which probably the final league would mention this week? Do you want to do a quick roundup?
Sure. So on Friday, Lecce beat Salernitana 2-1. On Saturday, Bologna lost 1-0 to Empoli. Spezia beat Sampdoria 2-1. Torino lost 1-0 to Sassuolo. And today, some big upsets actually. Udinese beat Inter Milan 3-1. Fiorentina beat Hellas Verona 2-0. Lazio beat Cremonese 4-0. The biggest upset is AC Monza beating Juventus 1-0 with Di Maria getting a red card. Atalanta beating Roma 1-0, and currently Milan-Napoli are currently playing 0-0 10 minutes in. But definitely, if we start at the top, Udinese beating Inter Milan. This means Udinese go to second place. Inter Milan, shocking defeat. Although Udinese have got some good players. Udogi is the left wing back for Udinese, bought by Tottenham, loaned back for the rest of the season. He's had a good season so far, picking up a few goals. And Bebeto for Udinese, he's having a great season, the striker, Portuguese striker. So not great for Inter Milan and their title hopes. And in terms of Monza, it's their first ever win in Serie A in their history. The team owned by Berlusconi, former president of Italy, former president of AC Milan. This is his sort of new pet project. As we were saying earlier, it's been pretty dire for Juventus and for Allegri. And after this defeat, there's going to be so many question marks around him. Juventus have never sacked a manager during the season. So if we're going by history, he won't get sacked. But if we're going by how it's going, he probably will get sacked. But who knows? Dire, absolutely dire. The main issue basically for Juventus is that they're not really servicing Vlahovic at all well. Their sort of star striker they brought in, the Serbian. So yeah, not great for them. I'm going to say Di Maria gets sent off. It's the icing on the cake, really. What was a really poor performance.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we're probably going to end up with a different winner of the Serie A for the fourth year in a row, with both AC Milan sitting in fourth and Inter sitting in seventh, Juventus sitting in eighth. It looks like it's, well, we did say it was probably a 5 horse race, but yeah, currently it's probably about an 8 horse race.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long way to go. It's only 7 games in, but yeah, to the way things are panning out so far, it's anybody's guess who's going to win this.
I mean, Roma, they looked a bit dire the last 2 Serie A games. I know they've had a lot of games, so I think they've had 3 games this week with Monday, Thursday, and today. So it's quite a lot on these players, but Tammy Abraham doesn't look like he's in fully form. He's had quite a quiet start to the start of the window, and watching them today and on Monday, they didn't look. I mean, they were scraped to win on Monday and they lost today, and they missed a lot of chances today. They should have won.
Well, they were missing Dybala, who's been the talisman this year. He's been a fantastic signing for them. I don't think Roma realistically were going to be able to challenge with their limited squad depth, or in terms of their quality that they could bring on. But I think that their main target is probably the Europa League this year. But I do want to point out a player from Atalanta's team, Rasmus Højlund. Sounds a little bit like Haaland, but he's a Danish striker, 19 years old, bought for about 25 million from Sturm Graz, which is an Austrian team. I think it must be the record sale from an Austrian team, actually. He's very highly promising. He was the top scorer last year in Austria. He's got a goal so far in Serie A, but one to watch out for.
I think that about wraps up all of the football for this week, unless you've got anything else to mention.
Yeah, I just want to say Celtic lost shockingly 2-0 to St Mirren today, which was a bit of an upset. Still top of the league, but sort of closes the gap because Rangers won. So it might be an interesting battle in the SPL to watch out for.
Scottish football's not one I normally watch too much, but yeah, I might start watching it because it looks a bit spicy. But yeah, I think that moves, and also we've got the return this week of the Pitchsider Player of the Week. Where would you like to give this award to, and who?
So, I did mention him before, but I shall say it, just reaffirm it. Ferran Jutla, the Spanish striker from Bruges. He's not really excels in anything in terms of his attributes, but he can deliver everything. He did get a goal and assist in that game with his only shot that he had. So yeah, I think I'll give it to Ferran Jutla, and just in general, Bruges probably team of the week for their 4-0 victory against Porto.
Very nice. That wraps up all the football. But yeah, there's been a lot going on around the Pitchsider. So this week, with the international games coming up, we haven't mentioned them yet, but that's because we're going to have a whole podcast dedicated to them midweek. Which, do you want to give us a run through what's going to come on this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to have a midweek special episode, which will be about all the international teams and the squads that they have released for the upcoming games, international games that are upcoming. And we'll also be looking at their kit releases, which will feature in the World Cup as well. Maybe do a little ranking system and see which ones we like and dislike. Already got a few in mind that I dislike. I'm sure you do as well. So yeah, look forward to that. Maybe it will come out Wednesday or so, Wednesday or Thursday. But we'll keep you updated on the socials.
Yes, yeah, and also, we've had a rebrand of our YouTube channel, so if you haven't checked it out before, we're going to release every episode. So currently on there's all of season 2, but you can probably listen to them. But if you want to have a listen to them, please do. And yeah, so every week there will be this episode released on our YouTube channels. So if you don't have Spotify or Apple, you can now watch it for free on YouTube. And also, if you get subscribed, there will be special content for that YouTube channel coming out. potentially live episodes if you would like to join us. So if you get subscribed, you can see when we go live. We will be advertising this on our socials, but there may be other videos as well. But yeah, interesting and exciting times for the Pitchsider.
Absolutely. Like and subscribe.
Yes, yeah, please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. But yeah, that about wraps up this week's podcast. We will be seeing you midweek, as we've mentioned. But please do go and follow us on our socials at the Pitchsider on Instagram and Twitter, and also YouTube is the Pitchsider. And also check out our website where we've got the latest gossip column. So if you go and check that out, it's been updated this week, which is the pitchsider.com, and there will be articles on there soon. Thank you for listening, and thank you for joining me, Toby.
Pleasure, as always. Thank you for listening, guys.
And thank you for listening, and goodbye.
All right.